Good morning, Pastor Steve here. Colossians chapter 4, verses 2 through 4. Continue in prayer and watch in the same with thanksgiving, with all praying for us that God would open a door of utterance to speak the mystery of Christ, for which I am in bonds, that I may make manifest as how I ought to speak. As he prayed for them in chapter 1, he asked for them to pray for him now. He wants to know how to speak, not what to speak. His heart is to be inoffensive in his presentation of the gospel. Remember in Acts 17, as he stood up on Mars Hill with all the sages, and they were debating back and forth, and he said, "Men of Athens, I perceive that you are religious in all respects." See, he had noticed a statue to this unknown God, and he launched into a whole presentation of the gospel based on that statue. So I want to declare that God to you. See, their prayers for him to know how to speak were being answered. He was honorable. He was gracious with those who didn't claim to be followers of God. He said, "I've become all things to all men," in 1 Corinthians 9, so that by any means I might win some. He adapted his teaching to their thought, to their culture, to reach them. He was being used of God to gently persuade each group in their own language. Larry Richards shares the story of Gibb Martin, who was later became a pastor. He was 27. He was a high school teacher, and he had a whole classroom of kids, and every day in the afternoon after class, he'd stop by and have a beer and groan about how bad life was. And he'd come from a religious background, but was an atheist. And he was really in a time of real desperation. He didn't want to be around people. Well, every day at the bar, there was an old guy there named Charlie, who was a carpenter, and he'd been an alcoholic for many years. But actually, Gibb Martin's great-grandmother had led him to the Lord. So he'd stop by the bar every afternoon, drink coffee, and share his life with those who would listen. And Charlie could tell that Gibb was a miserable soul. He tried to make friends with him, but he really couldn't. He couldn't share Christ with him. But he did invite him to go to hear a man with a doctor's degree who was speaking in the community. And of course, because he was a doctor, he went to hear him. And he went, and he became so convicted as he heard the gospel from this man's lips that he was sick all night. He thought he was dying, and the next day he gave his heart to Christ. Found out later that Charlie and others that Charlie had led to Christ had spent all night praying for him. You ponder that, Pastor Steve.